A cold rendezvous in Geneva, Switzerland. 4 people heading for a 12-pound lunch. A pretty girl, a Frenchman in a camel hair coat, and 2 men trying to sell him 3 warships. The 2 men selling the warships are rather nervous. That's understandable. They don't have them. They are, in fact, World in Action reporters. The girl is just a girl. The Frenchman is Pierre Lorez, international arms dealer, now selling weapons for a bloody African war. Tonight, World in Action deals with the merchants of war. Tonight we show how the breakaway African state of Biafra gets its arms, who gets them there, and who makes the money. At one end of the chain are men like Lorez operating from the 5-star hotels of the capitals of Europe. At the other end, more than 4,000 miles away, are men like these, Biafrans desperate for weapons to fight their bitter war of independence.
The enemy is not here. Don't knock anybody's head off.
The comic element in this Biafran exercise is misleading. In fact, this is no primitive tribal skirmish. This is a cruel war with modern weapons, in its way as cruel as the war in Vietnam. But somehow, when it's in Africa, nobody seems to care as much. The real war has now reached a critical stage. The arms dealers have done their jobs well. The build-up of weapons is nearly complete. Both sides seem committed beyond compromise.
Oh, not again.
It began last July. 5 million Igbo tribesmen in Nigeria's eastern region, Biafra as they now call it, declared themselves a nation. The fragile federal links which had united the 3 main tribes of Nigeria had finally broken. The Igbos claimed to have been goaded beyond endurance. And they have the scars to prove it. 3 times in 1966, thousands of Igbos were massacred by their fellow Nigerians in the north. Other Nigerians dislike the Igbos for their virtues. Intelligent and hard-working, they tend to take the top jobs. The Igbos call themselves the Jews of Africa, and like the Jews, they fear extermination. Under the leadership of Oxford-educated Colonel Ojukwu, they have held out now for 7 months. When the Biafrans sing that with Ojukwu they will conquer, they certainly sound convincing.
We are Biafra, fighting for our freedom. With Ojukwu in us, we shall conquer.
But even Ojukwu wouldn't be much good without his resourceful white allies, the mercenary soldiers and European arms dealers. The federal side trying to crush Biafra doesn't have to bother with such people. They get their weapons officially from the governments of Russia and Britain. But arms don't solve all the problems.
What are you bunching here for? Go and stay in your formation. We was probably shot by one of our chaps too. Stupidity.
To the major powers of Europe, the conflict is about more than people. It is also about oil, vast fields of oil, most of them leased to Britain. Now other nations are sniffing around Biafra. France might like the oil. The Portuguese would certainly like a black ally. Which brings us to Lisbon, capital of Portugal, and World in Action reporter Angus MacDonald.
That luxury villa over there in this Lisbon suburb is number 16 Avenida de Torre, the Biafran headquarters in Europe. They must have been pretty expensive. But then when you're on the run like Biafra is, everything's expensive. Transport, arms, munitions, and most of all, allies. The young Portuguese beggars hanging around the gate know when they're onto a good thing. The men who come here selling their services come for money, a lot of money, and the Biafrans seem to have it. When I went in there, I was quietly shown into a room, kept there, and then firmly but politely shown the door. But while I was inside the villa, half a dozen of Biafra's newfound allies had a much warmer welcome. These men, I later discovered, were part of the secret airlift, pilots, in fact, flying arms into Biafra. In contrast to my treatment, they were taken into the main reception room and swiftly followed by 2 large executive suitcases. That presumably was the payoff.
Biafran agents with ready money are scouring Europe for arms. World in Action acquired 2 Biafran shopping lists during its 3-month-long inquiry. We assembled some examples of what was on them and checked their worth with a man who should know, Major Robert Turp, an independent expert who has sold arms all over the world.
Well, of course, this everybody wants. This is a standard heavy machine gun. It's extremely lethal. It's American, not available in England, not available from new manufacture. It's only, like all these things, available from surplus. Cost, they want 40. Well, we have to assume that cost in this case assumes a slight illegality in the transaction, more than slight, and of course how badly the customer wants it. I should say these things are about £200 each. Well, the ammunition about £250 a thousand. It's a very heavy ammunition. I think that's about 5-6 shillings each. So according to your list, if they want 100,000 of them, I think that's about £25,000–30,000 worth of ammunition. Oh, hand grenades like this, Russian, European, Spanish, Belgian, French, about £2 each. I should say in a deal of this nature, they would ask something between £70 and £80 each for a rifle like that, and they want 21,000 of them. You do the arithmetic. Those are anti-tank mines, big ones, cost about £4 to £5 each. I think they want 10,000 of them, according to your list. It's about £50,000 worth.
And how would you estimate the total cost of these 2 shopping lists, Major?
Well, I should think your first one would be a good £250,000 to the customer. That's less transport, etc. Your second one contains 2 patrol boats and some aircraft. I've no idea what the cost of aircraft is, but leaving them out, including the patrol boats and the rest of this, you could reckon that at about £750,000 to £1 million. So between the 2 lists here, you have a potential total cost of £1.25 million, £1.5 million. In a deal of this nature, I should think that there's a certain amount of, perhaps not legality, but at least clandestinity about it. You see, you can't export any significant quantity of weapons from any European country, West European country, at least, without the connivance, open connivance or covered connivance of the government. And there are certain expenses, but I should think that there's been a markup on all these prices that I've given you, of at least 100%. But there would be expenses after that.
Somebody's making £500,000.
At least. At least.
Once the arms are bought in Europe,
yes,
how would you get them into Biafra?
Lisbon could be a good collecting point for these weapons, whether the Portuguese government want them to go down there or not. I wouldn't know, but I will say this, that and if the Portuguese government did not want them to go down there, they certainly couldn't leave Portugal.
Lisbon, the handsome capital of Portugal, traditionally a centre for international intrigue. But it seems strange that the black Biafrans are finding help here. In 3 African colonies, Angola, Mozambique and Guinea, Portuguese soldiers are hunting and killing black nationalist guerrillas. Obviously, there's nothing philanthropic about Portugal's aid to Biafra. It may be that the Biafrans are secretly pledged to cooperate after independence with the White Bloc in southern Africa, Portugal, South Africa and Rhodesia. Nevertheless, the relationship is kept discreet. The Biafrans in the villa here at 16 Avenida da Torre have been warned not to talk. The dictatorship which rules Portugal does not tolerate intrusion or criticism. Filming without permission is forbidden. We did not have permission.
Parked here in the perimeter of Lisbon Airport, you can watch the tourist planes come and go. But much more interesting things happen over in that quiet corner of the airport over there. That's where the planes land for the secret airlift to Biafra.
These aircraft are the gunrunners' planes, Lockheed Super Constellations pensioned off by the world's airlines, and some of them have extraordinary histories. 5T TAC. Weldon Action filmed this plane landing in Lisbon from Biafra. Last July it was sold by Iberian Airlines to an American company, resold, then flown illegally from America to Lisbon. It was repainted and given a new registration number. 5T TAC, according to our records, is a number issued to a Mauritanian aircraft. 5N07G, another Constellation. Last year this plane went through 4 hands in as many months, ending up with an obscure Portuguese company. Its registration number does not appear on international records. Last October, federal guns put 32 bullets in it on a trip from Biafra. Biafra is more than 4,000 miles south of Portugal. To get there, the Constellations make a dreary 16-hour flight round the bulge of Africa. They break through the federal blockade to land arms at Port Harcourt. Some refuel at São Tomé, a Portuguese island colony squatting on the equator. And under cover of darkness, they make the dangerous run to Port Harcourt. A holiday resort on the outskirts of Lisbon. Here another competing group of gunrunners relax. They are the pilots of Air Trans-Africa, a 3-year-old Rhodesian company with a London-based subsidiary. They have 4 aircraft working the Biafra run in competition with the dubious American-flown Constellations. At the moment, most of Air Trans-Africa's business is done in Portugal. The men live in this hotel, in considerable comfort.
That hotel behind me is the Prime Mar, just outside Lisbon. It's midwinter here, believe it or not, but there are still a few guests. The number varies. It really depends on how many of them are off flying the airlift into Biafra. We know quite a bit about their operations. In fact, we planted a man in there who stayed with them for a fortnight. Naturally, the pilots were suspicious, but our man finally established his credentials as an eccentric yacht captain by driving his Volkswagen through 2 glass doors into the foyer of the hotel.
After that, the pilots talked more freely. Most of them are South Africans and Rhodesians, which is not unexpected in this kind of business. That's one of their engineers, Peter Lakelin, leaving now. He's the man on the left. The other man is our yacht captain. But these are the 2 men that matter. The man this side of the car with the briefcase, Captain Jack Mallock, boss of Air Trans-Africa. On the other side, Major Alistair Wicks, director of his London subsidiary company. Alistair Wicks is an adventurer. During the Congo troubles, he became a high-ranking mercenary officer. Comradeship is often a casualty of mercenary war. 2 of the other officers with Wicks, pictured burying their dead in the Congo, talked with the opposite side in the Nigerian war. Mike Hoare on the left, in fact, talked to both sides and then decided to keep out. But Colonel John Peters on the right has found himself firmly on the federal side. He supplies them with mercenary pilots, and he may yet lead a strike column against Biafra. Wicks himself has no intention of joining in the scrum on the ground in Nigeria. He's doing rather well in the air. The company is even contemplating buying a £130,000 addition to its fleet. Weldon Action finally persuaded Wicks to talk at the Primar Hotel, but he refused even to discuss the activities of Air Trans-Africa, and he claimed to have renounced his mercenary soldiering activities.
Major Wicks, are you involved in recruiting mercenaries for Biafra?
No.
What is your involvement with Biafra?
It's a purely business one. Trying to help with some supplies.
What kind of supplies?
Stuff that they require there.
Does your involvement with Biafra go beyond mere cash?
Yes, I feel strongly that they have a right to their independence.
Surely you're inflaming an already bad situation.
I don't think so. I don't see it that way anyway.
This is probably contrary to the spirit of British government policy. Does this worry you at all?
I'm not aware that Britain has any policy.
Do you think it should have a policy?
I certainly do, yes. I think that Britain should intervene and bring the two parties to a conference table.
As a businessman, would you have given the same facilities to the federal side?
No, I don't think so, because these people have been slaughtered in very large numbers by what you call the federal side.
Will they win?
I hope so.
Would they win without your help, do you think?
Probably, because there are other people who are helping them and will continue to help them.
So you have no qualms about your involvement at all?
None at all.
This is one example of the kind of work Major Wicks has no qualms about. Gunrunner's Corner, Lisbon Airport. An Air Trans-Africa DC-7 at dusk. This plane is VP WBO. A fortnight ago, piloted by Wicks's business associate Jack Mallock, it took time off from the Biafra arms shuttle to join another plane on a curious trip to Zurich. They carried 25 million federal Nigerian pounds. The Biafrans desperately wanted to dump them onto the Swiss money market before a federal change of currency made them worthless. Mallock's plane was turned away by Zurich Control, but the other plane with 10 million pounds on board got through. That same day, the price of the federal pound crashed from 14 shillings to 1 and 10 pence. A back street in Lisbon. Weldon Action next went here in search of mercenary soldiers. We were digging for the Lisbon end of the pipeline, rumoured to be feeding French mercenaries into Biafra. Our investigations prove for the first time that the pipeline does exist.
We are parked opposite number 13 Rua das Prajas in Lisbon. And the man who's just left our car is Major Charles Gardien. We've hired Gardien to find out exactly what's going on over there. In theory, it's an amateurish press agency called Agenta Press. But in fact, we know it's a front for the main French mercenary recruiting station in Lisbon.
Our agent, Gardien, is the leading Belgian mercenary, a veteran of the Congo, Yemen and Angola campaigns. He was able to go where we couldn't go. His inquiries at the bogus press agency led us next to a block of flats on the other side of the city. The Pension Jean 21. We were in luck. Here, Major Gardien found two of his former comrades in arms from his Congo days. One of them was just back from Africa. He had been working in Angola for the army built up by the French mercenary leader, Bob Denard. That force, he said, was now in Biafra. His comrades provided Gardien with two key pieces of information for our investigation into the mercenary pipeline, a name and an address. The name, Jacques Dupré. It meant a lot to Gardien, for Dupré is a prominent French mercenary organizer. The address, 27 Rua da Campolidi, 5th floor on the left. This, Gardien was told, was now the center for French mercenary activity in Lisbon. He went there and found 4 nervous and very reticent men, recruiting officers for the mercenaries. By sheer coincidence, 2 of them left the building in front of Gardien. With some glee, he jabbed the message to us across the street. These are the men who turn on the pipeline. We picked up Gardien further along the street and asked him what had happened.
This is a transit center for a French and Belgian mercenary going to Biafra. I went up to the 1st floor. The door on the left was open a few inches by a man wearing French war decoration. When I asked for Mr. Dupré, there was a moment of panic.
The panic was understandable. Gardien had walked in on the secret center of French mercenary activity in Lisbon. As we drove away, we talked to him about French involvement in the Biafran affair. A Frenchman supplies the arms. The mercenaries who use them are French. The English-speaking airmen seem no more than subcontractors in a service with Frenchmen at each end. The key questions remain. Are the activities of these men an unofficial extension of de Gaulle's opportunist foreign policy? Do they hope to take over the British oil concessions? Wednesday, January the 10th, 1968. Geneva, Switzerland, in a blizzard. Here on that day, we finally tracked down the central figure in the arms trade with Biafra. Monsieur Pierre Lorez is hard to find. He moves between Lisbon, Paris, London and Geneva. Cloaked by ex-directory telephone numbers and go-betweens, he shuns publicity. It's bad for business. To make contact, 2 World in Action reporters became temporary arms dealers, with a bargain to sell, 3 ex-naval minesweepers. We were invited to talk business at his lakeside hotel. It was noon and blowing a gale. In the hotel bar behind a rattling window, reflecting the stormy lake, we met Lorez. From a car across the street, our cameras could just detect him, flanked by our reporters. Lorez listened to the amateur sales talk with polite Gallic skepticism. We had one alarming moment. We thought he had spotted our camera. The reporters turned round, but in fact his eye had merely been caught by a car rocking in the gale. But Lorez provided ample evidence of his importance in the Biafran gun-running activities. Our boats were too slow for this war, he said, and our prices were absurdly high. Only a short time ago, he'd been in Southampton seeing 2 much better boats at half the price. But if they had Bofors guns, that was different. Could we really get them? And did the ships have radar and sonic equipment? He explained that the Biafrans wanted fast boats, fast enough to outstrip the Nigerian Navy's frigate. The discussion paused while we moved off for lunch. We drove from the hotel in Lorez's car to a smart Geneva restaurant. The blizzard cleared and Lorez became a little warmer too. Over lunch at the Hotel de Bergue, he gave us more evidence of the depths of his involvement with Biafra. He was, he said, a close friend of Colonel Ojukwu and felt personally concerned with the fate of the Igbos. He said he had been to Biafra and seen the killing. He told us it's not quick. They cut men up and leave them for days to die. He said the Biafrans would have no trouble in servicing any warships they bought. The Portuguese would see to that. And he also talked about himself. Pierre Lorez, arms dealer, 47 years old. At 20, a Spitfire pilot in wartime Britain. 4.5 years and 1,600 flying hours with the RAF. His memento, a private Spitfire parked in France. Pro-British, a British wife and 3 children, 2 born in Britain. And a signed portrait of Winston Churchill in his office. Speaks near-perfect English. His home, a luxury villa in Portugal, next door to the pilots at the Primar Hotel. Pierre Lorez didn't buy our boats. No, he said, we hadn't wasted his time. And if we ever had a submarine for sale, we might give him a ring. An arms dealer with his 5-star life and his Havana cigars is a natural target for attack. But there are other merchants of war you should know about. 4 times in the past 6 weeks, under cover of darkness, arms have been flown from London to federal Nigeria. They were exported officially by Crown agents. But that's different, of course. That's backing Britain. One final story. For all the smooth competence of men like Lorez, not all the weapons ordered reach Biafra. We are inside Alcantara dock in Lisbon. Here we found weapons bought by Biafra which just weren't worth buying. These aircraft are T-6 Harvard fighters. 16 of them were ordered on our Biafran shopping list. 3 months ago, we found them dumped on the quayside in bits. Last week, they were still there, forlorn junk, crumpled monuments to the alliance of Black Biafra, White Portugal, and the merchants of war.
Biafra, marching for our freedom, my good Germany,